everyone. Zelensky has it right in this particular case. While Trump and Putin like to operate behind closed doors, wheeling and dealing out of sight, Zelensky wants negotiations for peace in Ukraine to take place in the open with other participants present, namely European allies, which makes sense because they absolutely have huge stakes in this. Now, the big question, of course, whether Trump and Putin are going to agree to this, my best guess is probably not. Because again, that is not their way. They're not into transparency and clarity and public exposure. So, besides, the more participants you have, the more questions are going to be asked, the more people that are going to be advocating for the rights of Ukraine in this, and the more people will be taking notes. And, from what we know about Trump and Zelensky, they don't like that. Surprise. There has been another summary of casualties from Ukraine. Now, once again, I'd like to remind everybody that casualties include both dead and wounded, as well as those missing in action. Okay? So, at the same time, we're talking about the times of war. So, Ukraine has been collaborating with the UK and France to get as much data as possible, keep it as accurate as possible. But I want everybody to understand how hard it is to get good data at the times of war. So, given all of that, we are estimating Ukraine war dead just over 45,000 people and 390,000 people injured. Russian losses are somewhere between 600 and 700,000. And yeah, I know it's a big margin because Russia lies and also likes to cover up its losses. Speaking of which, there's been more attacks that harmed civilians. In this particular case, there was one in the town of Izum in the Kharkiv region. The ballistic missile there hit a building right smack dab in the center of the town. There were 3 children among the injured, and there were some government officials and local social workers also among the wounded because of where the hit was located. More shelling in different parts of Ukraine killed 2 more civilians in Dnipro and in Kherson. Both of those get pounded regularly. And again, you can just pull up a map and see where the strikes are at, and that is actually a really good way to get a notion how unsafe it is anywhere in Ukraine right now. You can basically just point finger in Ukraine and look up that location and see, yep, there's been attacks there. Ukraine had carried out another drone attack against an oil depot in Russia's Krasnodar region. International courts are continuing to work to put together a tribunal to try Russia for the crimes of aggression, which is fine, but my question to everybody involved is, how are you going to get the culprits to show up? So we know Putin only travels to places where he knows he won't be arrested, even places that theoretically work with the International Criminal Court, like Mongolia. He traveled there last year, nothing happened. So I understand that as a symbolic gesture and as a way to expose all of the information, all of the horrific details of the atrocities committed by Russian military in Ukraine on Putin's orders. That is important. But as you might imagine, at this point, Ukrainian people are not going to be satisfied just because somebody says, yeah, that dude is a criminal. We know. They already know that. So we'll see how that goes. I think extracting Putin out of wherever he's safe would take a major international operation with collaborating agencies all over Europe. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but we'll have to see. Now, this is interesting, the second piece. So there has been a surge in queries from Russian families trying to find information about missing Russian soldiers. Ukraine, notice this is not Russia. Ukraine launched a hotline in January of 2024, so a year ago, and since then received more than 60,000 requests for additional information about missing Russian soldiers. 60,000 requests. That is 5,000 requests every single month. You do the math, how many that is per day. So, two things to notice there. Once again, it was Ukraine who set up that particular assistance service for Russians. And this goes back to my point when I was talking, it's hard to get numbers out of Russia because they are covering up how many are killed, how many are wounded, and how many are missing in action. So this is a bit of a scandal, and it does involve both EU and US. This is about the old oil tankers that were previously owned by EU members and the US that was sold to Russia to form what is called a shadow fleet to avoid oil sanctions. The owners of those ships made more than $6 billion selling those vessels into the countries that have not sanctioned Russia. India, Hong Kong, Vietnam, all of those. So, look at the numbers. 127 from Greece, 22 from the UK, 11 from Germany and Norway. 11 from Germany, 8 from Norway. Y'all, that is not helping. And yeah, there's more sanctions, there's weaker ruble, there's inflation in Russia. People continue not to care. People are so brainwashed there. They're basically ready to blame anybody for what's happening to them, other than the direct culprits. Found a new source for information on the war if you're interested. This is from ACLED, Armed Conflict information site that is international, nonprofit, and trying to be as non-political as possible. So they have this very excellent monthly summary about what is going on there, including the impact to civilians. So they have a really nice website, super easy to peruse. So like I said, it's ACLED. Pop over and check them out.